So before we go into the topic, let us check on the previous year question papers and what has been the pattern of previous year question papers, because that will help us to understand the concept better and how we have to prepare for the exam. Because smart preparation is more important than very detailed preparation. So I have just done an analysis of different questions that, over past 4 attempts. So if you see the first 6 questions, that is about 12 marks, is from DT and under MCQs, and then 9 questions, 9 plus 9, that is 18 marks, is from IDT. And under DT, TDS is a repeated point. Threshold limits with respect to TDS is an important point. Then with respect to supply, under IDT, supply is one of the most important section. And if you study that section for sure, at least 2 to 3 marks you will get in the exam. Then with under DT, deductions, threshold limits of deductions, threshold limit for ATC, ATD, what is the threshold limit with respect to gifts, what is allowable, what is not allowable. So these threshold limits, due dates under TDS, tax rates under TDS, these are the MCQs questions that you can expect under DT. With respect to IDT, again, customs, every attempt, there is 1 to 2 MCQs with, from customs valuation rule. So customs is a scoring area under IDT. Then again, in IDT also, you should know the threshold limits for supply. What is the threshold limit for registration? What are the GST returns to be filed? What are the due dates of GST returns? So understanding and having an awareness of threshold limits and due dates is very important from the MCQ point of view, and you can score a good amount of marks if you are aware of the due dates and the threshold limits. Then coming to the 7-mark questions. Out of 7 questions, 5 questions you have to attempt. So under this 7 questions, if you see DT, there is a fixed pattern. 2A, 2B, residential status, salary. Every attempt, it is the same thing, residential status, salary. Then 3A, 3B is house property business. 4A, 4B, capital gain, other sources. 5A, 5B, all the heads. So there is a fixed pattern with respect to DT, 7-mark questions. So what you can do? You have to choose the topics that you are good at and ensure you study end to end. If I study little bit of salary, little bit of house property, little bit of capital gains, it will not help me to clear the exam. So if I am taking salary and residential status, I have to ensure I know end to end all the provisions of residential status and salary so that I get the entire 14 marks. And if business income is a little bit hard and there are a lot of provisions to be covered, then you don't concentrate much on that. Then concentrate on capital gain, other sources. Ensure you learn all the provisions of capital gain and other sources so that you can attempt the second question and fourth question together, 14 plus 14 marks. Okay, so you have to select and prepare smartly. Okay, all the heads, if you have not studied all the heads, then if this 5A and 5B is it might be difficult for you to attempt, but you need to attempt only 5 out of 7 questions. So you can skip 2 questions under options. So you can skip 5A, 5B, and maybe one more head that you have not prepared well. You can skip that also under option. So 2A, 2B, 4A, 4B, you can attempt 2 questions, and 14 plus 14, you will get full marks. Then coming to IDT 6A, 6B, every attempt there is a theory question that is with respect to characteristics of DT, IDT, advantages of GST, what are the characteristics of GST Council, GST and Network, the first chapter on module 4, covering module 4 and module 5, first and second chapter. So theory aspect, you have to learn those pointers. Ensure you learn the same pointers and use the same pointers in your exam, because your suggested answers is going to have the pointers as per the textbook. Okay, so as far as possible, keep a note of the headers and ensure you bring the same headers in your answer as well. Okay, so this is again a well-known part. So you are aware that 6A, 6B is going to be a theory question from the first two sections. So preparing that will be a smart move. Then coming to 7A and 7B, 7A is registration concept is being tested. Registration concept meaning who needs to register under GST, under what forward supply who have to register, under RCM who have to register. Okay, which are the products covered under negative list? So from the angle of GST, who has to register, why they have to register? That is being tested under 7A. And on almost all the out of 4 attempts that I've analyzed, 3 attempts, 7A has been a question with respect to registration and RCM provisions. Then 7B. 7B, if you analyze December 23, there was a question on calculation of taxable value. Then it was time of supply. Then the next attempt again calculation of taxable value, then time of supply. So going by the pattern, we can expect there could be a question with respect to taxable value under 7B for this attempt. So give more importance for taxable value calculation, that is section 15, and all the provisions connected with section 15. Ensure you are thorough with those concepts and provisions. Then we come to question number 8A and 8B. So 8A, 8B, first I'll go through 8B. 8B is always a question with respect to customs, custom valuation rules, and the questions are as in the textbooks, very similar to the textbook illustration questions. So ensure you have worked out all the textbook illustration questions that will help you to secure this 14 marks. Then if you see 8A in December 23 and in December 24, both the attempts, you have had a question on ITC calculation, that is with respect to section 16 and section 17, that is the conditions for availing ITC, and section 17 block credit. Okay, so we can expect seeing the pattern. We can expect in December 25 also, we can expect a question on ITC calculation. Okay, so this analysis will help you to prepare better for your exam, to help you know which are the important topics that you have to give more priority on, more importance on, and ensure these topics you cover end to end, all the provisions, you thorough with all the provisions. I hope this will help you to score close to 60 marks and clear your DT and IDT paper with flying colors. We'll go with the study material itself, so that you can also note down these points and then you can prepare separately as well. So this particular module, that is module 4 or chapter 1 of IDT, is where you will be asked a question which is about 14 marks, that is section 6A and 6B. Okay. Indirect tax, what are the concepts? What are the concepts and features of indirect tax? So we'll just summarize on the points. It is a tax on goods and services. Okay. And there is the burden of tax is being shifted. Indirect tax is it is a tax burden on the consumers, and the supplier is required to collect the tax from the consumer and pay it to the government. So important concepts. First one, it is a tax on goods and services. The second is the burden is on the consumer. It is inflationary in nature because when you levy taxes on goods and services, the price of goods and services increases, which can lead to inflation. Okay, it is an important tool to promote social welfare, to reduce the imbalances in the society, because luxurious goods will have a higher tax rate and the essential goods will have a lower tax rate. It has a wider tax base because on almost every goods and services that is being consumed in the country, you can have a tax rate. Regressive in nature, because irrespective of rich or poor, all the products, if you are purchasing one product, you will have to pay the tax rate that is attached to that product, irrespective of your income status. So that is why it is called as regressive in nature. No pinch. No pinch is because the seller is only collecting the tax from the consumer and depositing it to the government. So the seller does not have any direct pinch of paying, like direct tax where you have to pay tax out of your pocket. There is no direct pinch on the seller of goods and services. Okay. So when you are asked a question on describe the features of indirect tax, you have to ensure that you have these pointers as in your textbook, because in your suggested answer it is going to be these pointers. So when you are being given marks, it will be based on the pointers. So ensure that you have the headers correctly. Note down the pointers before your exam and just revise on it before you go to the exam hall. Now, next, in a difference between indirect tax and direct tax. This can also be a theory question under the 6A or 6B. So direct tax and indirect tax. Direct tax is a direct tax on goods and services. So it is collected based on the income. It is progressive in nature because higher income tax means higher tax rate. Indirect tax is a tax on the consumption of goods and services and not on the income aspect. So it is regressive in nature because irrespective of the income level, if you are purchasing any goods or services, you will have to pay the tax that is attached to it. Example, income tax, indirect tax, it is GST and customs. In case of direct tax, tax evasion is possible. You can underdeclare your income, but in case of indirect tax, because it is a consumer-based tax, it is being collected by the consumer, so the chance or the amount of tax evasion is less. Burden cannot be shifted in case of income tax. In case of direct tax, it is the person who is earning the income, they have to pay the tax. But in case of indirect tax, the burden of tax is being shifted from the seller to the ultimate consumer. Okay, taxable event is, in case of direct tax, it is earning of income. In case of indirect tax, it is supply of goods and services. Okay, again, you need to identify and note down the important pointers with respect to DT and IDT as given in the book. Next, background of indirect tax. So this is again 4.3 where you can expect MCQs. Okay. Article 246 read with Schedule 7 divides the subject matter, that is the constitution, into three different heads. Okay, the subject matter of taxation under constitution is divided into three heads as per Article 246 Schedule 7. List 1, List 2, List 3. List 1, union list, that is governed by central government. So central government has the power to legislate the subject matters covered under list 1. List 2 is state list and list 3 is concurrent list where both center and state will have the power to legislate. Okay. The items covered under union list, state list, you can go through but not very important. But you should know Article 246, Schedule 7, List 1, List 2, List 3. Okay. And what is the disadvantage of the old regime of taxation before GST? There was cascading effect of tax. That was the most important disadvantage. That is tax on tax or cascading effect of tax. And there was no availability of input tax credit. You cannot take the tax that is paid under central sales tax and adjust it against VAT or state taxes. There was no provision. GST helps us to adjust the input tax credit because there is only one nation, one tax concept. We are able to use the ITC, and hence the burden of taxation is reduced on the consumers. So this gives you the bad side or the difficult side of the old regime, and the better side or the progressive side of the new regime of GST. Now, what is the, with respect to the constitutional amendment, what are the pointers that you should remember? Constitutional Amendment 122. Okay, this you have to remember, in which the bill was passed with respect to GST. GST is covered on supply of goods and services except alcohol for human consumption. Okay, central government will have the power to levy excise duty in addition to GST on tobacco and tobacco products. So these, you get two MCQs over here. One is GST is not applicable, which is that one element that is kept outside the outside GST as per the constitution itself. It is kept outside the purview of GST in the constitution itself. What is that one product? It is alcohol for human consumption. Second question, what is the product on which, in addition to GSTs, central government has a power to levy excise duty? There is only one product again. What is that? Tobacco and tobacco products. Two MCQs you can get in this question, in this particular para. Tax on supply of 5 specified petroleum products. So what are the 5 petroleum products? It is not outside GST. It is, as of now, it is kept outside the purview of GST, but not in the constitution. Okay, as per the constitution, only one item is outside the purview of GST, that is alcohol for human consumption. Tax on supply of 5 specified petroleum products, namely crude, high-speed diesel, petrol, turbine fuel, and natural gas. Okay, these are currently placed outside GST, and it can be brought in at any point of time as per the recommendation of the GST Council. Okay, now these pointers, again, this will help you with respect to MCQs. Now next comes to GST Council. You can get a 7-mark question with respect to GST Council. What do they do? What is their administration? What is the composition of GST Council? So any of these aspects can be covered under that 7 marks under section 6A or B. Okay. So GST Council constitutes of Union Finance Minister and Minister of State and state ministers to recommend on GST rate. Now, introduction to GST law. So in the first part, you can get certain questions about indirect tax. What are the advantages, disadvantages, and also about some MCQs on the constitutional amendment. Then introduction to GST law, again, first 2 parts of module 5, again covers the theory aspect only, and this was also covered under section, that question number 6, part A and B. Amendments made under Constitution 101 amendment, okay, under 2016. What are the amendments being made? There were 3 important articles that were inserted. Article 246A, 269A, 279A. Again, 3 article number you have to remember. 246A, 269A, 279A. 246A. What is the crux of Article 246A? Power to levy GST on goods and services. Okay, both center and state have the power to levy GST on goods and services. This was mentioned under Article 246A. Because why? Article 246 had 3 lists. List 1, list 2, list 3 that gave separate powers to center and state. Okay, so 246A was introduced to give power to levy to both center as well as state. Because GST is a dual tax regime, that is CGST and SGST. Article 269A. Okay, the crux of 269A is giving power to the central government to levy tax on interstate trade. So IGST levy is covered under Article 269A. CGST SGST levy is covered under Article 246A. And Article 279A, formation of GST Council. So the formation of GST Council, how do they recommend the rates, what is the composition, what do they administer, all this is covered under Article 279A. Okay, so 246A, 269A, 279A. You should know what these 3 articles are, which were inserted by the constitutional amendment, which is the amendment number 101. Okay. So 279A, Constitution of Goods and Service Tax Council. So GST Council, you have the Union Finance Minister, Union Finance Minister is a chairperson. Then you will have Minister of States who are members. Each state will have a representative. Minister in charge of finance as nominated by each state government. They will also be the members. Okay. And what are the areas that they could give recommendations on? Okay. It is based on the recommendations of GST Council that the rates are fixed, the rates are amended, or new products are being introduced, like new goods and services are coming into the purview of GST. Certain goods and services that were covered under GST will be moved under exempt supply or nil rate based on the recommendations of the GST Council. So they give recommendation on the taxes, cess, surcharge that is to be levied on goods and services. What are the goods and services that will be subject to GST, that will be exempted from GST? What are the principles of levy? How the levy will be apportioned between the state and the center? Threshold limits of turnover with respect to registration. Rates including floor rates. Floor rates is base rates, special rates if any, or cess, compensation cess if it has to be charged. Any special provisions with respect to specified states like Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu. So what, any special rates or special provisions to be given. So these are the areas where the council can give recommendations on. And council, what is the quorum? If when the council is having a meeting, what is the quorum? What is the minimum quorum required? Minimum quorum required is half of the total number. 50% is the minimum quorum requirement. And to pass a particular recommendation in the council meeting, at least 3/4 of the weighted votes of members present. Okay, so 50% are present. So among the 50%, 3/4 of the weighted votes should be for a particular recommendation, for the recommendation to be approved. Okay, and now 3/4 of weighted votes. So it is not a basic 3/4. we have to weight the votes. So how is the weightage given? The vote of central government is given 1/3, okay, weightage, and the vote of state governments are given 2/3 of weightage. So 2/3 weightage is given for the state government votes and 1/3 weightage is for central government votes. And together they should have 3/4 of the weighted votes for a recommendation to be cleared. Why I am emphasizing on these 1/3, 2/3, 50% quorum, 3/4 of the weighted votes is because these can come as MCQ questions. So when you are reading your study material, you need to highlight the pointers that you think it can be a MCQ question. These kind of thresholds, limits, certain composition, these can be your MCQ questions. Then Article 246A. 246A, it gives Parliament the exclusive power to levy tax on interstate trade. Okay. Article 366(12)A. What is goods and service tax? Goods and service tax is mentioned under the Constitution. What is goods and service tax? It is mentioned under Article 366(12)A, which means any tax on supply of goods and services or both except supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Okay. So this particular part, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, is kept outside the Constitution itself under GST through the definition mentioned under Article 366(12)A. Okay. Then Article 269A, it gives the state and central government the power to levy tax, and 269A states that the tax that is collected under interstate trade it has to be apportioned between the center and the union in the manner as prescribed. Okay. So you just need to remember what is the crux of each of the article. Then we come to GST network. GST network, this was a question, I think in December 23, you were asked a question on what is GST network. What are the features of GSTN? So GST network is a platform that helps the suppliers, the taxpayers to file their returns. It provides the required IT infrastructure that is required for filing of returns for administration of GST. So what do? They facilitate registration, they forward the returns to central and state authorities, compute and settle IGST, okay, matching of tax payment with the banks. So they provide the entire IT infrastructure that is required for administration of GST. Again, these pointers important, you will have to note it down before your exam. Just go through these pointers. What are the salient features of GSTN? It was incorporated in 2013 as a government-owned company. It functions as a pass-through portal for taxpayers, a portal that helps in registration and helps in administration of GST. They help you to submit the returns, they help you to submit the registration forms, they help you to make tax payments. All the provisions under GST, if it like applying refunds, everything can be done through GST portal. Need for GST. So what is the requirement of GST? What are the advantages of GST? What were the difficulties that was faced in the old regime? For all these questions, you can have the same answer. What is the need for GST? Need for GST to avoid the cascading effect of tax. It is to one nation, one tax concept was introduced. Okay, and different taxes by various states, it actually increased the difficulties for businessmen to do business. So that is the need for which GST came into being. Which are the taxes that were subsumed under GST? Excise duty, additional duty of excise duty levied on medical toiletries, additional duties of customs, service tax, and surcharge and cess. All these were subsumed. With respect to state, VAT, CST, purchase tax, entertainment tax, luxury tax, entry tax, tax on lottery, betting, gambling, tax on advertisements, surcharge and cess. Again, very important question with respect to MCQ point of view, a very important part to be covered. What are the taxes that were not subsumed under GST? Customs, then research and development cess, export duty, anti-dumping duty, safeguard duty. So all the duties with respect to customs are still prevalent. With respect to state taxes, state excise duty, stamp duty, professional tax, motor vehicle tax, these are still existing. So GST helps in a seamless flow of credit. It gives you a competitive price because there is no cascading effect of taxes. Increase in revenue for economy as a whole, because almost all the products and services are coming under the purview of GST. So it helps you to boost the revenue of the nation. Easy and straightforward tax. So it helps in ease of doing the business. Benefits of GST, again, you can give the same pointers as that for need, but it's better you note down the exact pointers as in the textbook. It helps in the ease of compliance. Uniform tax structures are there, which is a benefit for the business because, again, ease of doing business, removal of cascading effect of tax. It increases competition because reduction in transaction cost, tax on tax is not there. So you can give a better rate. When you offer a better rate, it helps to grow the business. When business grows, competition grows. So it helps in improved competition. Gain to manufacturers and exporters. With respect to central government, it helps in easy administration. It helps to reduce tax evasion and increases the efficiency. With respect to consumers, it is more transparent method of taxation. It reduces the cascading effect of tax, reducing the price of goods and services. Salient features of GST. So what is the difference between benefits and features? Very slight differences. Features na varumbodhu, we need to tell what are the important aspects of GST, unique aspects of GST compared to VAT and excise service tax. What are the unique aspects? First unique aspect, it is a destination based tax. Okay, consumption based tax. Wherever the consumer is placed, whichever state, that state will get the tax. So it is a consumption based tax. It is not a tax that is levied at the time when the product leaves the factory, when the goods leave the factory, but it is a tax that is collected on the consumption, where the product is being, which state is consuming the goods and services. One nation, one tax. It is a dual GST model because there is both CGST, SGST, and with respect to interstate goods, there is IGST. So it's a dual GST model. Import and export. Under GST, imports are covered under RCM basis where the recipient will have to pay tax, and the export is a zero rated supply. Rates of GST. Sorry. Rates of GST, there are different rates. Rates keep changing. There has been a latest change from September 22nd of 2025. Different rates have been changed for various products. But we can say that the rates are about 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. Tax on value of supply. It is calculated. What is the tax calculated on? On the transaction value. There are certain threshold limits for registration. Not everybody who does a business needs to register under GST and start collecting and paying tax. There is a threshold limit, and only so the small businesses are kept outside the purview of GST. Only if you cross the threshold limit, you will have to register and collect tax. Input tax credit is one of the most important sought out feature of GST. Input tax credit helps to adjust the tax that has been paid on the purchases. It helps to reduce the cascading effect of tax. So these are the important features when it comes to GST. Then Goods and service tax compensation cess. Compensation cess is levied on certain products. What are those products? Pan masala, tobacco products, cigarettes, coal, aerated water, motor cars. Okay, so you need to remember these products on which compensation cess is applicable. Compensation cess is not applicable if you are under composition levy. It is not applicable when goods are being exported from India, because export is zero rated supply. When it is a zero rated supply, how you can apply compensation cess? So compensation cess is not applied in case of exports. It is not applied in case of composition levy. Okay, these two exceptions you have to remember. In DT and IDT, wherever there are exceptions, give more importance to those exceptions. Okay, because exceptions will be tested in your exam. They will check if you know the exceptions. What are the exceptions? So they will ask under composition, Mr. A is under composition levy, and whether cess is applicable or not. So if it is composition levy, cess is not applicable. If you are exporting the goods, cess is not applicable. Cess is applicable only for certain goods, that is cigarettes, coal, aerated water, motor car, tobacco, and pan masala for their sales in India. If any of these items are exported, tax is not, cess is not applicable. Okay. Then okay, status of tobacco and tobacco products under GST regime. Tobacco products, both GST as well as excise is being levied. Okay. And which authority will levy and administer GST? For CGST and IGST, Center. For SGST, state government will administer and levy the tax. Who will decide about the rates of levy? It is decided by center and state together based on the recommendations of GST Council. So GST Council will pass the recommendations. They'll place the recommendations. They will vote on it, and then they will pass the recommendations. Once the recommendations are passed, it will be notified and the rates will become effective. Okay, role of GST Council we have discussed. You can use the same pointers that we discussed earlier. Okay, so this with respect to this particular part. Now we have discussed portions that can fetch you 14 marks. Okay. So I hope you have noted down these pointers in your book as well and go through these. And tomorrow we will start with the next concept, that is supply registration concept. We'll go through the basics, and I'll also tell you how to approach sums and case studies that can come under this 7th question and 8th question. Okay, these are one-pager notes that can help you to just prepare the day before exam. Like Article 246 ல என்னெல்லாம் list இருக்கு. Then you will have key provisions 246, 269, 279. At least it will help you with the MCQ part. Okay, so you don't just trust these notes and just don't study only this. You have to stick to your book. But this notes will help you to just the day before exam when you're preparing, you can prepare based on the notes. Okay.